In this lab activity, we will allow a beam of light to travel from air into glass and measure the angle of incidence and the angle of refraction. The ray of light that falls on the interface. Now, this is the interface between air above and glass below. The ray of light that falls on the interface is called the incident ray, and the ray that goes into glass is called the refracted ray. You also notice that part of the ray gets reflected. We are not going to be concerned with that. Now, a line drawn at right angles to the interface at the point where the ray gets incident is called the normal drawn at the point of incidence. The angle measured between the incident ray and the normal is called the angle of incidence. So this is the angle of incidence. The angle between the refracted ray and the normal is called the angle of refraction. We will represent the angle of incidence by the letter I and the angle of refraction by the letter R. Well, let's open the lab manual. Now, in this lab, we will be using a trigonometric ratio known as the sine of an angle. Now, here I have drawn an angle theta. Now, the angle theta is part of a right angle triangle. The side opposite to the angle is called the opposite side, and the side AB is called the hypotenuse. Sine of the angle is opposite side divided by hypotenuse. So the ratio A divided by H is called the sine of this angle. Now, why are we using this? Because the refractive index of a material, when light travels from medium 1 to medium 2, in our case medium 1 is air and medium 2 is glass. The refractive index of medium 2 with respect to medium 1 is given by the equation n equal to sine of angle I divided by sine of angle R. Now, you don't need to worry about it. We can find the sine of an angle using a calculator. Now, what all you need to do is make sure that the calculator is set on degree mode. That is the first thing you need to do. Make sure that the calculator is set on degree mode. Then press on the key called sin and enter the angle and type in your angle, then enter. You will get the sine of that angle. For example, if you want to find sine of 20 degrees, press sin on the calculator, type in 20 and enter, and you will get 0.34. In other words, sine of angle 20 degrees is 0.34. That's all you need to know. So use a calculator to find the sine of an angle. Now, you will be doing the experiment for, say, 5 values of angle of incidence and angle of refraction. Use your calculator to find the sine of I in each case and sine of R in each case. Then find the ratio sine I divided by sine R for each trial. And finally, find the average of these n values. All right. Let's now take our data values. Now what I'm going to do is I will bring a protractor. I will ask you to measure the angle of incidence and the angle of refraction. Now remember, the angle of incidence is the angle between the normal and the incident ray. For example, what is the angle of incidence now? The protractor has to be right at the point of incidence. Now, that is 0, that'll be 30, 40, 50, 60. So here the angle of incidence is 65 degrees, and the angle of refraction is this angle. It is 0, 10, 20, 30, 35 degrees. So you have angle of incidence 65 degrees, angle of refraction 35 degrees. All right, don't write that down. I'm going to now set the first trial. All right, now this is the first trial. Measure the angle of incidence and the angle of refraction now. All right, I'm going to go to the next trial. All right, measure the angle of incidence. There you go. Measure the angle of incidence, this angle, and the angle of refraction here. Let's go to the third trial. There you go. Now measure this angle of incidence. Measure this angle of incidence and the corresponding angle of refraction. Our next trial, there you go. Measure this angle of incidence and the corresponding angle of refraction. And finally, one more trial. Measure the angle of incidence and the angle of refraction. All right, you have 5 sets of angle of incidence, angle of refraction. So again, what are you supposed to do? Use a calculator to find the sine of each of the 5 angles of incidence. Then find the sine of each of the 5 angles of refraction. Find the ratio sine I divided by sine R in each case, and that will be the refractive index. Find the average of the 5 values, answer the questions, and submit the lab.